Hello, everyone. Welcome to It's Worth a Shot, where we are going to be covering F563, a Crash Course 101. Next slide, Mary. So this presentation may contain information and or content supplied by third parties. The information provided does not constitute endorsement or recommendation by Mount Pacific, our normal disclaimer that we do every week. So if anybody has any questions on that, please let us know. Mary, next slide. So as many of you know, it is Nurses Week. So thank you to all of our nurses that we have on the call today. And also please make sure to thank your coworkers and the other people around you in this. You guys do a lot, and I know you don't always get the recognition that you deserve for all of the things that you have to do every day. And we appreciate you. Mary, next slide. So housekeeping items. If you have any webinar topics or ideas that you would like us to cover, please let us know. We want your feedback, and we'll plan according to what you guys need. That's what we're here for. So please let us know, and we continue to meet every Wednesday unless it's a holiday. Next slide. Go ahead, next slide, Mary. Oh, polling question, sorry. Does your facility have a sepsis response team in place? I know it's kind of a hot topic right now with CMS, so we want to make sure that everybody is aware. And if you have questions on what you should be doing, if you do get sepsis in your facility, let us know and we can help you work through that as well. All right, looks like the responses have slowed down. Mary, if you want to end and share.
Jamie, are you seeing responses? Because I'm not seeing any.
I did. There was 15.
Oh, okay.
It looks like it was mostly yeses, though, so that's good to hear. Mary, if you want to pop into the next slide, we'll see. Oh, there it is. Ooh, 17 responses. Awesome. Or most are no, excuse me. All right, we will go from there. All right, weekly COVID snapshot. As most of you have probably guessed, we are seeing downward trends in everything nationwide. So congratulations, good work. Please don't forget though that we do need to still kind of take a look at vaccinations. That and our infection control is our best way to keep not only our residents safe, but each other. Go ahead to next slide, Mary. So now we're going to introduce Matthew Thomas from Alaska, where he is going to talk to us about F563. Matthew, as I'm Sumlin, go ahead and take over and introduce yourself.
All right. Depending on where you're at, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Matthew Thomas, I'm the State Survey Director for Alaska. It's a brisk 46 degrees here today, but the positive news is that our sunset is at 10:25, so we get lots of sun starting this time of year. So as I mentioned, a State Survey Director, also a registered nurse, firefighter, and a fire inspector and investigator is my background. So I've been in this job for about 11 years and would like to bring a topic up. There will be a couple parts of my presentation in which I will ask for your interaction. I think we're going to try to do it by poll. And I'm just really curious because I know we have facilities from all over right now on the call. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, I'm the State Survey Director. I'm also the Chief Life Safety Code Inspector and the Emergency Preparedness Liaison. So I'm very, very busy is what that slide's telling you. Next slide. Okay, so the F tag actually encompasses a lot of information about visitation. but I want to focus on something a little different. I want to focus on the policy and procedures about residents, maybe when you need to deny visitation for certain reasons, such as clinically necessary, for safety reasons. We're going to deep dive into that mainly. So next slide, please. Okay, so what is reasonable clinic and safety restrictions? This includes practices to basically protect the health and wellness and security and safety of residents and staff. But I'm going to go over what some of those specifics are per the SOM, and then we're going to kind of deep dive a little bit more into what you can do as a facility to restrict visitation under certain circumstances. I do want to let you know that those next slides are not all inclusive of 563. So it's very important to know. I'm only going to focus on very specific items. So next slide, please. Okay, so one of your options is you can keep in the facility locked and secure at night with a system in place to allow visitors approved by the resident. So obviously you can't lock people in from going out, but you can lock people on the outside from coming in. I will tell you that it's very important, that second part about having a system in place, allowing visitors to come in anytime they want. This actually can get you a citation if you don't follow this. If a visitor sits outside and is trying to get in, ringing a doorbell upon a phone, and nobody responds to them and they can't get in, then you're denying that resident their visitation rights. So please make sure that you have a system if you lock your facility that allows the residents, or I'm sorry, the visitors to enter. Next slide. This one's kind of new. It's new in the SOM, fairly somewhat recently. You actually have the option to deny access to individuals who are inebriated or disruptive. So if we can, Mountain Pacific, I'd like to poll the audience to see if they've ever had an issue or encountered an issue with a visitor that's been inebriated or disruptive. Is that possible?
I'm sorry, if the audience can just answer yes
Oh
or
yeah,
no in chat.
we can do chat. Great. Yeah, I'm just really curious to see how many facilities have encountered this type of behavior or incident. Okay. Sadly, I'm going to predict yes for a lot of them. Oh, got a no. Okay, good. Yes, 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 lots of yeses. Okay, good. Call the cops to come to assist. A side note, we actually had an event that was reported. I won't say specifics, but we actually had a shooting of a staff in a facility parking lot. So this is a behavior that happens quite often, unfortunately. So if they are inebriated or disruptive, you do have the right to ask them to leave. Can we go to the next slide as well? Thank you for your responses. Okay, so denying access or providing limited or supervised access to an individual, you're allowed to do, especially if you're suspecting, if you suspect abuse, coercion, basically any type of verbal, physical, financial abuse, until an investigation can be completed. So just know that you have that right as a facility to do that, but you also need to explain what you're doing and why you're doing it. It's important to have this in your policies. I would be safe to say that most of you do, but it's on how you actually execute it. There is, especially the abuse and coercion, it's very important to separate that out when you can and safely. Next slide, please. Okay. This is the one I really want. This is the one I'm excited to talk about because I want to make sure everybody's aware. So denying access to a visitor or providing supervised visitations for people who you suspect or have a history of bringing in illegal drugs into a facility, which would place multiple people at risk. And this is my next chat question. How many of you in long-term care facilities have had experiences of illegal substances being brought in or used in your facility? Just yes or no. That's unfortunate. Okay. So, oh, nice. So we're getting more yeses than nos, which is what I kind of expected. My next interactive question, if you're willing to type it in the chat, can you tell me what kind of drugs that you have encountered? Was it cocaine? Was it heroin? Marijuana? I would just marijuana. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yep. There it is. Meth and fentanyl. Lots of marijuana. Jamie, yes. Sorry guys, I believe that you might be able to hear my computer fan blowing. I apologize for that. Okay, so it looks like a lot of marijuana. I want to point out that the fentanyl, crystal meth, and heroin is what we're seeing a lot now. Marijuana, yes, in the state of Alaska, marijuana is legal to a certain extent. You have to go off property of long-term care, but we're seeing a lot of fentanyl and heroin use up here, almost to the point where people are having their friends bringing Pringle cans and hiding the substance in the bottom of the can and putting the Pringles back on top. So, what do you do with that, right? What is the facility's right to do? What, can you search them? Do you take it? What happens? So can we go to the next slide? So as I mentioned, we have a lot of the hardcore drugs being used in our long-term cares these days. And so it's really important that your staff are trained and knowing what those signs of drug-induced behavior. Most of us are medical professionals, and we know this, the lack of coordination, slur of speech, change from baseline. It's really important not only for your nurses, but your CNAs, your housekeepers, your security guards, if you have them, your front desk people. This is a facility-wide, task force to notice these things. So it's really important that we try to make sure everybody's aware of that and these signs. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so what can we do as providers? So if something occurs, you can ask the resident, have they used illegal substances, and whether or not they possess or have used illegal substances, maybe while out on a leave day or something. If you determine that illegal substances have been brought into your facility by a visitor, you should not act as law enforcement. Rather, you need to follow your state laws, and you may need to resort to local law enforcement. A lot of facilities ask me, hey, okay, we found a bag of crystal meth. What do we do with it? If it was me, I wouldn't want it in my possession. As a healthcare facility, I would come up with a system to ensure a chain of command. Maybe you have a lockbox documentation, and then call the local authorities who most likely have, they do have the ability to destroy it. So it's very specific to what it is in your state, but please, I would not suggest getting rid of it yourself, just in case something comes up. I would always turn it over to the proper authorities. So can we go to next slide, please? Okay, this one's important because this is actually in the sum, is that facility is not allowed to conduct searches of residents or the personal belongings without permission, because that is considered a violation of patient rights. So what do? You ask. If they say no, what do you do? That's the difficult part. You have to just keep an eye on it. You have to stay on top of it. And if it's becoming a continuing problem, where you think that they're under the influence of drugs or drugs being brought in. We need to do an investigation to figure out the source and go from there. I know that's kind of gray area, but that's what we have to work with. And I kind of wanted to, you don't have to answer, but think about this question. What would you do if a resident was unable to comprehend the request for a search? Maybe they have a low BIMS, or maybe they can't speak or communicate in any form or way. Then how do you get permission? The first thing I would do is see if they had a POA. Obviously, you can request it from the POA. Then if you do have some form of communication method that works differently, as long as you can ensure that you get their approval, you can do that. But I want everybody to just put it in the back of their head that if you get into a situation where you have someone who's not able to comprehend or provide you consent, what would your facility do? So think about that when you're looking at these policies. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's some of the key points I want to take away. This is, I bet most of you have this, but let's reiterate it and make sure. You have to have policy and procedures addressing the topics that I discussed today. You're required to. Maybe something I said today was helpful, and maybe you can beef up your policy or include something that maybe you didn't know you needed to include, or options. So make sure you review that. Here's the really important thing. And again, I'm speaking from Alaska, and I know what we deal with here, and I don't know what other states deal with, but educate your staff on these policy and procedures. Conduct drills. We do fire drills, right? We do code blue drills sometimes, and weather drills. Conduct drills on how you will handle belligerent individuals or inebriated individuals. Who's the chain of command if a CNA discovers an inebriated visitor? Is the CNA supposed to confront them, or does the nurse need to be notified? And then the director of nursing needs to be notified. You guys need to ensure that you have that chain of command and how you're going to proceed with that. As I mentioned earlier, determine how you'll handle illegal substances once they're discovered. Every state has different laws. Like I said, I tell my facilities to chain of command, we call it chain of command form, put it in a lockbox that's not accessible to anybody but maybe one person or two, and then turn it over to the authorities. You can actually even call your local PD or your local jurisdiction police department and ask them on their procedure what you would like them to do in the future, and you can include that in your policy. So I'm sure that many of you have, we have, like I said, code reds, code blues, and I'm sure many of you have something like code strong or code banana, whatever it may be, for when we get violent, whether it be residents or whether it be visitors. So make sure that you have a process and a code for how you will respond to that violent, disruptive, or inebriated person. Ensure all residents representatives, or decision makers with legal authority are aware of the visitation policy. You include the topics that we discussed today. We overload so many of our patients and residents with so much paperwork and consents on admission and so forth. But I think it's really important if you can really call out the visitation policy, saying, here's everything you can do as a visitor, here's everything you can't do. Will they remember that? I don't know, but you can always do that on initial, and you can always remind people annually. And then I just want to let you know that we're discussing visitation, but I've noticed that issues with the topics we discussed today often follow in with F689, which is supervision and accidents and hazards. That also provides a lot of additional information for you to relate to what we're talking about today. But it is possible to violate visitation policy and also violate 689 with inappropriate supervision. And I'll just leave it at that. Next slide. Perfect. So this, I really would love for you guys to pop out questions or inquiries about anything we talked about, or tell us an event that you had and how you handled it. Maybe others can learn from it. Is anybody willing to come off mic or put anything in the chat for a question?
And if you do have something you want to share, but you're not quite willing to do it on a recorded
Oh,
webinar,
I forgot
you
about that.
Yep, you can definitely send it out to the listserv or reach out to your account manager with Mount Pacific, and we can start that conversation with you and Matthew if you do have questions, or whoever it is in your state that would be handling this as well.
Okay. Excellent. Give me just a moment here. I'm looking at preliminary fentanyl overdoses. We're up 38% in AK in 2023. Yes. Correctional overdose. I'm just catching up on the chat, guys, because I wasn't reading it as I was presenting. We've actually had a couple. I have just a couple minutes left here that I'll bring it up, and you guys already probably know this. We had some events in Alaska where fentanyl products were discovered, and the person handling the fentanyl was not wearing gloves, and it actually absorbed through the skin, and it was an instant respiratory arrest and instant crisis. So that stuff is powerful.
Yeah, thank you, Matthew, for mentioning that. And just to add to what you said, if we're seeing fentanyl in our facilities, it's very important that folks have naloxone available for if we are having overdose from these products. And if you don't already have it, or if you need training for your staff, please reach out to your Mountain Pacific account manager, because we have contacts in all of our states to get you hooked in and get you trained if that's something that you need.
Excellent. And any other questions that that was mentioned that you're not willing to do on a recorded line? Yes, please reach out through the Mountain Pacific, and they can coordinate with me, and I'd be happy to assist in any way I can to battle this epidemic that we're having in our long-term cares.
All right, Mary, next slide. Thank you again, Thomas or Matthew. All right,
No
guys.
worries. Take care. Have a wonderful day, guys. I'm gonna hop off.
Okay. All right,
Thanks
everyone.
so much.
Bye-bye.
Please don't forget the evaluation link is in the chat. And then, do you have any other questions, any other concerns that you would like to chat about real quick while we have a few minutes left in our call? No? All right. Well, I think you guys can get 5 minutes back in your day. And we appreciate all of you for coming on, and let us know if there's anything you need or any other stories you'd like to share.